سبحان الله. يا الله. الله أكبر.
Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to the world of Islam, coming to you from Richmond, Virginia, here in the United States of America. From Denmark to China, from Australia to Argentina, from the USA to the UK. There are more than 1.5 billion Muslims in the world today. The religion of Islam is the fastest growing religion on earth, but unfortunately, the true nature of Islam is often misrepresented and misunderstood. So I invite you to join me as we travel throughout the world of Islam and give you the opportunity to know the truth about Islam and the truth about Muslims. You are now entering the world of Islam. Assalamu alaikum. And welcome back to the world of Islam, coming to you from Richmond, Virginia, here in the United States of America. I'm in a place which is called the Hijra House, which is like a transitional house for Muslims who are being released from prison to help them to make a better Islamic transition back into living in the real world, as I call it. And I'm joined by one of my brothers in Islam, Brother Karo Abdul Malik. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
And thank you for inviting us here and agreeing to sit with us and speak about the Hijra House and some other things. But before we begin, Brother Karo, I just want you to tell us a bit about yourself, your background, and how you came to Islam.
I came to Islam in 1977 while I was in prison. I was in prison from 1971 to 1978. I came.
Now, what were you in prison for?
Armed robbery. Armed robbery and aiding and abetting escape. I got 25 years with fire suspended for the armed robbery and 2.5 years for aiding and abetting escape.
And how old were you at that time?
21 when I got the sentence. So I went to prison motivated by my experience when I was in Vietnam. I became a racist when I was in Vietnam, and I came back. And when I came back from prison, the area I grew up in was polluted with heroin. People were afraid to come out their houses, and the drug addicts had taken over. So I went out myself and others that had been to Vietnam, and we started robbing people to get weapons to declare war on the drug people. And so I got caught sticking up robbing a motel.
And so this was your first time going to prison that time?
Yes.
Okay, but it was a long time you went. So when you were in prison, I mean, were you Muslim from the beginning of your sentence, or did it take some time for you to?
It took some time. What happened was I learned that one of my biggest challenges was my temper. And so I learned that I needed to correct that, because if not, I was going to continuously, that was going to be a big challenge for me, cause me problems. So I used to examine a lot of things, listen to a lot of people talk and examine different things. And the people that I saw were most progressive when I was in prison were the Muslims. So about 6 years after being in prison, I met Qasim Khan and Tariq Khan. They used to come to the prison and teach Islam. And the passion that they had for it and the challenge that they presented in terms of changing yourself, developing yourself to be a man, progressing yourself, those things really appealed to me. So, and plus when I was in prison, I got my GED and I was taking up barbering. But it was something missing in my life, because my life was just haphazard, for lack of a better way of expressing. I didn't have any purpose other than I didn't want to come back to prison again. But Islam tore at the core of everything I believed in. It totally challenged my racism. I couldn't justify racism anymore with Islam. And nothing or no one had did that prior to that. But not only did it do that, it presented a different perspective of life than I'd ever been given. Because I saw religion as just being spiritual and hopeless, not enhancing it. You know. So Islam introduced that to me, and I've been trying to grasp it ever since.
Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, what is the environment for Islam in the prisons, and what facilities are provided to Muslims in the prisons, and what about the growth of Islam in prisons? I mean, what's it like in prison for Muslims?
All right, now, since I've got out of prison, I've been a volunteer in the prison for 28 years.
And how long have you been out now?
I've been out July the 5th, be 30 years.
MashaAllah.
And but I've been a volunteer in the prison for 28 years,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm seeing different perspectives of Islam now.
Mm-hmm.
When I accepted Islam, the only thing we knew about Islam was what was called the Nation of Islam,
Mm-hmm.
under the taught by Elijah Muhammad.
Mm-hmm.
But in 1977, Imam Warif D. Muhammad, Wallace D. Muhammad, Elijah Muhammad died, and his son took over.
Mm-hmm.
And when his son took over, the perspective that he brought of Islam was completely different than anything I'd ever heard.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I define everything by black and white.
Mm-hmm.
But when he came in, he started saying things that challenged me. For example, he said truth didn't have no color, ignorance didn't have no color, life didn't have a color, death didn't have a color. And those things challenged the core of everything I believed in. It just shattered it.
Mm-hmm.
So the more I read about it, the more I heard about it, and then with Qasim and Tariq Khan coming into the prison, and the way they presented it with the passion they did, it just totally changed my whole perspective of life.
Mm-hmm.
I saw every human being as the permission of the Almighty to be born.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the human as a human family. I saw that the application of Islam, how it could enhance any human being, irrespective of who they were.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you go back into the prisons now and volunteer. What do you volunteer to do in the prisons, and how accommodating is the prison system to Muslims?
The prison system has really advanced in Virginia compared to when it was when I was in prison.
Mm-hmm.
For example, last year, myself and one of the staff here at the transition house, we're in an organization called Muslim Chaplains in Service.
Mm-hmm.
And the Department of Correction contracted us to go to 8 different prisons and train the staff on Islam.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's major compared to when it was when I was in prison. Because, see, the only introduction they had to Islam was the Nation of Islam perspective. And they taught that the white man was the devil and the black people were gods, and this kind of thing like this.
Mm-hmm.
So they still had that, they still carried that misconception.
Mm-hmm.
But when we went in and we taught them what Islam wasn't, we saw the impact.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things we did was we gave them a question of 20 questions, a questionnaire, 20 questions, and just asked them just to tell us what they knew about Islam.
Mm-hmm.
Then after the 2.5-hour training we did, we gave them another one, and their answers were completely different.
Mm-hmm.
So I see the Department of Corrections being far more accommodating than they were, even though we got a long ways to go.
Mm-hmm.
But they're far more receptive than they were at one time.
Right, but let me just ask you, because we talked to some brothers who've been in prison, we
Mm-hmm.
talked to yourself, but are there Muslims in prison? Are there women who are coming to Islam in the prisons also?
Yes, and the women, it's humbling to see how the women is. Now, what I mean by that is this: if you go to the prison, the men and the women dress just alike.
Mm-hmm.
Boots, trousers, shirts, they looked alike. From the neck down, if they would had their back to you, you couldn't tell the difference between a man and a woman.
Mm-hmm.
So the women have far less support than the men do in prison.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost accepted and expected for a man to commit a crime. He just being a man. He just being a boy.
Mm-hmm.
But when a woman go to prison and come out, the accountability is far greater for the woman.
Mm-hmm.
It's far greater. Now, for example, when a man go to prison and come out, and he can change himself, the whole deal.